Welcome to our webinar on modernizing your legacy devices with ChromeOS Flex. I'm Hailee Zapata. I'm the Alliance Marketing Manager here at Promevo, and I will be your host and moderator today. So over the next 45 minutes, we're going to talk about what is ChromeOS Flex and how its value comes to your organization, how ChromeOS Flex can help your organization by reducing downtime, e-waste, lots of benefits, how to install ChromeOS Flex on your legacy device. And then as always, we do a live question and answer at the end of the session. So real quickly, I'd like to talk to you about Promevo. We are a Google Premier partner. We sell, service, and build Google products. We are 100% Google focused, and we specialize in Chrome OS, Google Workspace, Google Cloud, and we have our own proprietary workspace management tool, gPanel. Now for the stars of our show, let's go ahead. We're going to meet our Chrome OS experts today. So joining us from ChromeOS and the Google side is Pete Nevin. He's our partner success engineer. And we also have Brent Cole, who's the sales director here at Promevo. Before I turn it over to these guys, I wanted to let you all know that we are going to run things a little bit different than our normal webinar. Rashi Dillard, as you see here, our ChromeOS partner manager, ended up being out on paternity leave. Congrats, Rashi. So we went ahead and we did a little short pre-recorded video for his portion of the webinar. He really does an overarching talk about ChromeOS Flex, the values, the benefits, things like that. So we'll start the pre-recorded video and then we'll come back to the live portion and do our panel discussion and conversations and then our Q&A.
Hey, Rashi Dillard wanted to talk about ChromeOS Flex and how you guys can upgrade and modernize your devices and upgrade your PCs and Macs. How it works. So it's fairly easy. It comes from a bootable USB drive that you can put on any type of old PC and Mac device. When you're ready to install it, it would completely wipe the existing operating system and replace it with ChromeOS within minutes. You're able to deploy ChromeOS Flex to all kinds of different devices in your organization via this USB drive or also network deployment. By upgrading your devices to ChromeOS Flex, you can get a number of great benefits: proactive security, easy deployment and management across all of your ChromeOS and ChromeOS Flex devices, a very light, fast, modern, cloud-first experience, and you get to make the most of your existing hardware without having to rip and replace when you've already invested so much in your devices. Why don't you talk a little bit on the proactive security? You're able to safeguard all of your devices from growing threats such as ransomware. Just a quick note, ChromeOS has no reported ransomware attacks ever, malware, and employee errors. Some of the key points here: Google safe browsing. Everything is also web-based applications, creating an innate secure environment. Built-in protection, as I alluded to, no need for virus protection and no reported ransomware attacks ever, as well as automatic updates in the background, security updates, and critical updates are all happening. To touch on the easy deployment and management, you can deploy ChromeOS Flex across your entire fleet using a USB or network deployment. You can set up cloud profiles, you sync settings across users, across organizations, files, and policies are also put out instantly. There are over 600 configurable cloud-based policies from the Google Admin Console, and it's all managed from one pane. You can easily deprovision devices, remotely wipe, and also push out updates across an entire fleet of devices through this Admin Console, making setting up new employees very easy. This is a very fast, modern work experience that we are seeing a lot of organizations moving towards. You can transform any older devices, such as PCs and Macs that you're not currently using, with a modern OS for Chrome OS. Some of the key benefits: keeping your employees fast and efficient. These devices boot up very quickly, sometimes under 6 seconds on average, not slowing down time for your employees to get right to work. Fast access to VDI and web apps. So you're absolutely able to still use some legacy apps if your organization is still dependent on those things using VDI. And our VDI partners, we work very well with Citrix, VMware, and Cameo, just to name a few. A clutter-free and reliable experience, very much a light, fast OS. While updates are happening in the background, reducing the downtime for all of your employees. We also have a grab and go type policy where you can log into any device and pick up where you left off with your user. I want to talk about how we can make the most of what existing hardware you guys have and extending the lifespan of those devices. The purpose of ChromeOS Flex is very much a value proposition of refreshing older devices with a new fast modern OS of ChromeOS and making this older hardware much more sustainable for your business and reducing the need to purchase new devices. As I said in the last slide, you can manage all these devices in the Google Admin Console once they're transferred over to ChromeOS. Making the most of your existing hardware by managing the devices in the Google Admin Console. As I was saying in the previous slide, you're able to deploy and manage all of the ChromeOS Flex devices in the Admin Console. Very much an innate way to support these older PCs and Macs that have stacked up over the last 10 plus years. ChromeOS is the most sustainable device that you could possibly own. ChromeOS Flex prevents existing devices from entering landfills by extending the device's life. So we talked about how ChromeOS Flex can extend the life of your PCs and Macs. It's a great way to create a sustainability story for your organization where all of those older devices that cannot be moved over to the new version of the OS are being repurposed and they're being extended and creating a sustainable story. Reducing your e-waste, reducing your emissions, and most importantly as well for organizations is the cost savings aspect of it. Here's a few key points here. You may have not known, but in the first year of transitioning 10K devices in ChromeOS Flex, instead of organization buying new devices, the sustainability impact of reducing CO emissions is equivalent to 825 passenger vehicles off the road and saving energy to power average American households for 40 years. So just a quick snapshot of the sustainability impact ChromeOS Flex can have. Here are some common ways that customers are implementing ChromeOS Flex. They're enabling this new age of remote and hybrid workers as companies are increasing their workforce and having more flexibility around what kind of workers they're employing. ChromeOS Flex is a great way to manage those devices and deploy from Chrome Admin Console. Accessing virtualization, as I was talking through with VDI, being able to still use those legacy apps and being able to do it through remote desktop and VDI. Securing and optimizing contact centers. Contact center is a great use case for ChromeOS, mainly around the efficiency aspect, the security aspect, and being able to quickly boot up and deploy devices as well. It reduces a lot of time and increases efficiency for those contact center workers to get right to work. Powering digital signage. We do have a kiosk and digital signage solution as well, being able to power displays and small form factor devices that go with displays for the kiosk and digital signage use case. Customer employee facing kiosks. A lot of organizations are also increasing customer friendly ways to interact with filling out forms or being able to have some self-service within the organization. This is a way that ChromeOS can be used as well with kiosk and digital signage. Just wanted to highlight a couple of companies that are moving to the cloud with ChromeOS Flex. These are some of the companies that have adopted it in all kinds of different verticals: hospitality, retail, healthcare, financial services, and even manufacturing. From a hospitality aspect, being able to have wayfinding with digital signage and kiosks, self-service, patient checkouts. From a retail perspective, back office, front office, anywhere really that you can implement ChromeOS. Healthcare, clinician devices. I know that companies are a little bit hesitant on moving and pushing out new devices due to budget concerns or even security concerns with ransomware attacks going around. ChromeOS directly addresses that. Financial services, like I said, self-service kiosks, being able to access pretty confidential information and having that reliability of security, as well as managed guest session, which is a feature of ChromeOS as well. Being able to go in, fill out the forms that you need, and it being completely wiped for the next customer. Manufacturing, on the floor, inventory management, the workers being able to also display any kind of analytics and reports through digital signage and kiosks, all great ways to implement ChromeOS and ChromeOS Flex. Here's the questions that you want to ask yourself when you're considering ChromeOS Flex. You're trying to move more toward cloud-based management without making additional device purchases and investments. You want to reduce e-waste and have that sustainability story, extending the lifecycle of your devices. And you also want to consider deploying a cloud-first OS that's moving more towards a modern device, using kiosks, digital signage, are just a few use cases for a modern device.
Thanks, Rashi. Really great to hear when some clients should consider Chrome OS. As I'm interacting with our prospects and clients on a daily basis, one thing that I hear consistently is the Windows migration happening in October of next year. What recommendations would you have for someone who knows there's a looming migration happening with Windows Q4 of next year, but they're considering Chrome OS? What recommendations would you have for that individual?
Yeah, absolutely. I would definitely have organizations take a look at ChromeOS Flex. And the simple fact of the three value propositions that I mentioned, the security aspect, right? So a lot of organizations, security is a very key point for them. Number two, sustainability. That's aspect is very important. Those older PCs and Macs, they still may have some life, and extending that life with the organization through the use cases that they currently use are important. And then ease of manageability in deploying those devices through the Chrome admin console. And it's very easily and seamless for you to manage those devices. And you can see those values and then consider Chrome OS as an alternative if you're not looking to move to Windows 11.
It sounds pretty easy, Rashi.
Yeah, definitely. It's a great value prop, and ChromeOS Flex is a great entry point to consider that OS move. We also do have ChromeOS devices that you can easily deploy, and they go across a breadth of different form factors. We do have devices that already have ChromeOS licensing on them. We have Chrome boxes, which are small form factor devices, your traditional Chromebooks that are built for enterprise use cases. Also, you can install ChromeOS Flex directly on the devices you already own. And there is a number of lists of devices that are ChromeOS Flex ready. It's very easy to transition from ChromeOS Flex to ChromeOS devices. Same base code, same user interface, and IT can manage those devices side by side in the Google Admin Console.
There's obviously a large fleet of devices here that are certified. And maybe I have a selfish question here, but I've got a few devices that might be a little bit older, or I'm thinking about some of the organizations we work with that just have some technology and devices sitting around. And a question that I have, and I'm sure others do, is what's the cutoff? Is there a line where some of these devices would not be supported by Chrome OS? And what recommendations would you have for anyone that's thinking about maybe some older devices and if they're compatible?
Yeah, that's a good question. I would definitely wouldn't count out any kind of device that could run Chrome OS Flex. Like I said, we have 550 plus devices that are currently certified, but that number is growing every day. And you can see it's across all kinds of different scopes of devices. There are some digital signage and kiosk devices here that you could pop Chrome OS Flex on, try and make it seem it work. And then we also do have a team that is taking on recommendations for Chrome OS Flex certified devices as well. In my opinion, I would try it and test it out. It might work on some of the older iMacs that you have and some of the older Windows devices that you have. It's definitely a great way to kind of step in and extend the life cycle of these devices. So definitely just try it out.
I appreciate that, Rashi. And I think the number one thing I've heard there's flexibility. So from a client perspective, I would recommend you to reach out to Promevo. We can troubleshoot behind the scenes, determine if we are able to support your device from a Chrome OS Flex perspective, and allow us to do the work on the back end to determine if your device is supported and the best path forward, assuming it is.
As I was talking about earlier, there's over 550 plus devices that are certified for Chrome OS Flex. This number is increasing, and we are adding new devices every day. It's very easy to get started and try it out. It's a free service that you can get software online at our site, Google Chrome OS Flex, put it on a USB drive and pop it into any older PC or Mac devices that you have and get started right away.
All right. Well, we want to thank Rashi for jumping in and doing that pre-recorded video for us. Now that we got that overview and we got to learn the value points of ChromeOS Flex and all that good information, I'm going to hand it over to Pete real quick. And we are going to talk about a few projects that go along with ChromeOS Flex. We have ChromeOS Flex and then a couple options you can pair with it, or we just want everyone to know about that goes really well with it. Pete, can you just tell us about those projects real fast?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Hailee. The first thing I want to talk about, I think Rashi mentioned this in the video, is that ChromeOS Flex is a great way to try out ChromeOS. You don't need to buy a piece of hardware. You can just install an existing piece of hardware. And to go along with that idea of trialing ChromeOS, we have this service offering called the Jumpstart. ChromeOS Jumpstart is a service that is Google designed and has been shared with a number of service and deployment partners, Promevo being one. And Jumpstart is a professional service offering designed for new customers that are new to Chrome OS to successfully deploy the devices into their enterprise or into their educational institution. It includes all of the tasks you need to set up the admin console, which is the cloud-based MDM that we use to manage these devices. It's a service that's performed by certified professionals. So I'm going to talk about that in a second, but these are folks who have trained on Chrome OS and they know how to deploy at all these different partners that we work with. What is a Jumpstart? Essentially, a Jumpstart is a series of meetings that the certified professional will have with your staff. They'll set up the admin console, verify your domain, enroll devices, help to integrate your identity so that your users can sign into the devices with their existing identity, whether that's a Google identity or it could be Entra from Microsoft, or it could be Okta, or it could be Ping. Those just integrate smoothly in, and your users will sign in with their existing identities in these devices. They will go through and enforce security policies to make sure that all the devices and all your employees are up to date with the proactive security that comes with Chrome OS. Your admins can deploy and configure applications that come down from the cloud. In the video, Rashi talked about this being a cloud first operating system. That means that everything that goes on that device comes down from the cloud. You don't have to image devices. You don't have to go and install applications. That'll all happen automatically as soon as the device enrolls into your domain. And the final step is to prepare the team for a mass deployment. Essentially, Jumpstart is like a pilot for Chrome OS, and you can do that with purchasing a handful of devices, a handful of licenses, and just testing it out. And as we mentioned with Chrome OS Flex, you don't even have to buy the devices. All you have to do is purchase some licenses, ask Promevo to do a Jumpstart, and you'll be off and running with a very strong deployment. The other thing I want to talk about is this certification. So Chrome administrators can go and take a certification exam and get a professional certification. It's a legally defensible certification. If you go to the first slide, talk a little bit about that. It's a 120-minute multiple choice exam. It is available to partners. It's available to customers. It's available in English and Japanese. Essentially, it helps you learn how to set up devices and manage them from the admin console, how to configure policies, how to push applications, and just understand some of the value proposition around Chrome OS. And there's an exam guide. There's a link there in the slides, an exam guide to help you study for it. For folks considering certification, here are 3 reasons to take this professional administrator exam. One is that we're offering it for free, at least until January 2025. There's no exam fee. You can just go and sign up and take the exam. The exam is designed for folks who have about a year's worth of experience of working in the admin console. So it's folks that have had the experience, they know how policies work, and they can also use that exam guide to study for what you need to know. Once you pass the certification exam, you show up in a directory. As I said, it's a legally defensible certification. You show up in this online directory. And then for partners who like Promevo that work with Google and deploy Chrome OS devices, these certifications are necessary to achieve certain levels within our partner to get access to funding and to work with Google on a daily basis. So that's just what I wanted to talk a little bit about along with Chrome OS Flex. And Hailee, I'll pass it back to you.
No, those are great programs. It's really interesting. And we'll get more into this in the panel discussion. But did I hear that right? The Chrome OS certification process is free for now.
That is correct. We've been offering this certification for a couple of years now, and there is no certification exam. We waived that for the first 3 years now.
Okay, that's fantastic. So if they want to start that process, should they reach out to Promevo? How do you start the certification process?
Yeah, there's a link on that prior slide that they can go to that has how to sign up for the exam, how to take the exam, and then also the exam guide. So there's a website with a number of videos and articles to read that helps you brush up on your skills in the admin console so that you can pass the exam.
Okay, fantastic. And just so everyone knows, you will get this deck with all the links. So if you're interested, you'll have everything. You can also reach out to Brent or Pete here, and I'm sure they'll walk you through it.
Absolutely.
Let's get into this panel discussion. I want to see, how do you see customers using ChromeOS Flex like as a priority in their organization? Like, how do they use it moving forward?
Yeah, that's a good question. I would say that they're the two most common ways, the two ways that I see customers like deploying ChromeOS Flex and why they're deploying it, why they're testing it out. The first is it's this idea of trialing ChromeOS. There are a lot of organizations out there, they've been relying on Mac, they've been relying on Windows for a long time, and they've heard a lot about ChromeOS, but there's a hurdle, right? You have to work with Google and verify your domain, and there's steps that you have to take. And one of the biggest ones, obviously, is the like financial cost. You have to go out and buy a bunch of new devices, and it's maybe something you're not sure about. So ChromeOS Flex allows you to take some dusty old Windows laptops that everybody's got sitting around in a storage facility somewhere, those off, flash them. It takes a couple of minutes. I think they said that in the video. Like installing ChromeOS Flex, I've done it if you have a machine with USB 3 and a fast USB stick, I've done it as little as 90 seconds to go from like Windows boot up to sign in screen to welcome screen for ChromeOS. And then the second most common use I see with our customers is just to extend the life of older hardware, right? This is, I think Rashi mentioned contact center. Contact center is one of those places where you've got a room with devices and people and your business is reliant on them. But it's also an area where you want to keep costs low. And so device refreshes in a contact center is a perfect area where there are devices in there that are 5, 6, 7 years old. Maybe you're coming up on your Windows refresh next year and you've got some of those devices don't meet the specs you need to migrate to Windows 11. And so those can be flashed with ChromeOS and get an additional 2, 3, 4, 5 years of useful life.
Very nice. So Brent, I know in our video, you'd mentioned the migration process is coming up and you, Rashi, talked about it. How can Promevo help customers, clients, prospects transfer? Like, how does that process work?
Yeah, it's a good question, Hailee. If you are on this webinar and you want to visit our site, it will direct a response from one of our sales professionals, whether it's myself or someone on our team that can assist with that process. And what we've seen historically with working with clients is everybody's at a different stage in their journey, knowing the migration is coming. We'll understand, do you need very entry level or first level questions answered? Or are you further along in the process where we just need to help you install the USB device and kick off that process? The value add that Promevo provides is we've likely done something similar with another client, and we can be that voice in the back working with people like Pete, Rashi, and our team is sure that you feel comfortable through that process and answer any questions you have.
Okay, very nice. So speaking of all these old devices, the migration process, we know that there's requirements around which devices. So let's say you have a device that isn't in that 550 plus. Can you request a device to be like certified? Like, how do I go about that? I know that's a lot of devices, but somewhere there's got to be someone that doesn't have that specific one.
Yeah. No, that's a great question around how does Google support these things and how do they get certified? And essentially what certification means, I backtrack and say, our engineers designed ChromeOS Flex to run on any Intel hardware that's been built within the past 10, 15 years. And the certification process, what certification means is that our engineering team is actually going to go out and purchase and acquire some of those devices, 1 or 2 of those devices, to put in our lab and to install the software and to run tests against the software and commit to fix bugs. And so the certification process just means that we have one of those devices. We're testing it actively on every release of the software to make sure that things work. Just because it's not on the certification list doesn't mean it doesn't work. And it doesn't mean that you can't install ChromeOS Flex. So that's what I tell customers to say, hey, I've got 500 of these device X in my call center. Do they work? They're not on the certification. Try one because it probably will work. And that certification process is a commitment by Google to 13 years from the date that model hits the market as a Windows machine or as a Mac. We will test it for 13 years to ensure that it still works with ChromeOS Flex. The devices will continue to get updates beyond that 13 years. So an older device can still work. It's just that we'll take it out of the lab and we won't test against it and we won't commit to bug fixes should something happen down the line. Oh, and I think the other aspect, can you get a new device certified? And yes, there is a process. reach out. We reach out through Promevo. They can work with me or someone else on the partner engineering team to get that device added to our list. And we have a queue of devices that are being added every week. It just depends on, we want to make sure we're putting our effort into the devices that customers actually use and want certified.
Mhm. Okay. So is there any type of like brand that it doesn't go with, or is it absolutely any device at all? Reach out any possible device.
Yeah, it really, any Intel-based Windows or Mac, I would say, since we say we commit to 13 years worth of updates. If you have a device that's older than 13 years, it might work, but we're not going to commit to certifying it. So it's a trial error thing. The only devices I see, we work with all the major OEMs, Asus, Acer, Dell, down the alphabet, Lenovo, et cetera, HP. The only devices that we see where we have, and in that certification list, it not only lists that the device is certified, but it will give you some caveats like, oh, this device has a special piece of hardware that we couldn't
Hmm.
get the driver for. So occasionally there's specialty devices where the device works, but the specialty feature or add-on that was added at the device, we don't have the driver for, and that piece doesn't work. That's what the caveat typically is. And you could go onto the site, the ChromeOS Flex site, and see which devices are certified and if there are, in fact, any support issues with it.
Okay. And then I was listening to the ChromeOS Jumpstart program and the ChromeOS Flex, and it makes sense to bundle those together, especially if you're a large organization. And you and Brent can probably both chime in on this one. What are the benefits of, hey, if you're getting these free ChromeOS devices or ChromeOS Flex, sorry, we're not giving you free devices, the ChromeOS Flex for your devices. And then you also have this Jumpstart program. What are the benefits of having those like connected and just running simultaneously?
The value of the Jumpstart is that a customer that is not familiar with Chrome OS, maybe doesn't even have Google products, you go through all the steps you need to take to get to the point where users have hands-on devices and you're testing out your business critical software on a Chrome OS device. And you've got
Mhm.
it and it's performed by a person in the crowd who's an expert, right? They're certified experts in Chrome OS. And so as a way for a new customer to you know, feel some assurance that they've had their devices deployed and they're going to work and they're going to work through some of those technical hurdles. I see ChromeOS Flex is a way to do that very inexpensively. All you really have to pay for is the license. Everybody's got devices sitting out there that they can use. And then Jumpstart means that they're deployed and they're deployed in a professional manner. And you're not missing out on any security issues or things like that.
And Haley, from a
Okay.
sales perspective, the benefit that we see is we can work through everything that Pete just alluded to on a certain subset of people within your organization. So whether you want that to be a small test group, we can flush out any issues that we run into, create a frequently asked question document just to ensure that you feel comfortable. And as a mass deployment looks out in the future, we've worked through a lot of these issues, but we've done it with a smaller subset of groups of individuals. And it's not a mass chaos situation. It's a very organized and easy process to follow with people like Pete and Promevo here to support you, as well as people internally that have
Mhm.
gone through that process already.
That's nice. So when they come in to do the ChromeOS Flex Brent, they can also just with the same sales rep or same team, hey, I also want to do the Jumpstart program, or I also want to do the certification. Like they can just do a one-stop shop and kind of nail all these projects in one spot.
Yeah, absolutely. Our goal is to create
Mhm.
consistency, create a relationship, create an environment where both sides know each other well. We know the best form of communication, how often we want to communicate. And that way there's consistency for both teams and really helps move with speed through the process.
Mhm. Now, and this might be more of a personal question from me, but I know I always have IT problem. Unplug it, plug it in, doesn't work. After everything's set up, let's say a couple months down the road, they're having an issue. Can they reach back out to Promevo? Hey, my ChromeOS Flex device isn't booting or something's wrong. Can they come back to you for IT support?
Yeah, we're happy to provide support at any point during the life cycle of a client with Promevo. We are a very customer driven organization and pride ourselves on creating a good experience. We are here to support you at any point through the journey and life cycle of your time for the Chrome OS portion of your agreement.
That's awesome. Okay. Thank you guys for that. I'm going to go ahead and do a few more slides, and I think we should get to our Q&A. I did see some questions in there. Thank you for walking us through all the things Chrome OS Flex for your legacy devices and the many options the organization has surrounding it. I know we went over a lot of options today, so if you have any questions or you're ready to get started today, please reach out to the contact information. We also hope that you'll check out our website for more information on all of our solutions, our services Promevo has to offer. And for more resources, we have a plethora of blogs from ChromeOS Flex that our content manager, Christine, has created. They are a great resource, so feel free to click on those and really deep dive into how ChromeOS Flex can help your organization. On the right-hand side, we have a list of all of our upcoming webinars, including our next gPanel Office Hours webinar on gPanel API. If you're new here, gPanel is our own proprietary workspace management tool. So if you're interested in or you have Google Workspace, sign up for our monthly gPanel office hours. It's a must. It's very informative. We also have all of these on demand on our website if you're interested in learning just what gPanel is, what ChromeOS Flex is. We have so many webinars up there. Please go check them out. Okay, let's get into our questions from the audience. Pull these up here. I know we got a couple. Okay. So, are there any limitations on what older devices this can benefit? Our team uses Macs. Some are fairly old, 2019. Is this something that can be utilized on devices like this that are becoming obsolete?
Absolutely. Thanks for the question. You said pretty old and it being 2019, and that makes me think like, what? That's not old. I've got a lot older machines than that in my inventory. Yeah. So I think I alluded to this during the discussion, but for new devices that we are adding in certification, we certify at least 13 years that we're going to be testing against that. The device from 2019 is 4 or 5 years old. Yeah, absolutely. That device would be supported and certified. I don't know that specific model is on our list yet. It depends on if a customer has requested it. It depends on if obviously our team focused on machines that have large footprints out there in the community. But yes, 2019 would not be considered you'd have several years of updates that would be tested against that device.
Okay, great. I feel like I remember you saying there's no limit. We'll test anything and see what happens, basically.
Yeah. And exactly. Unlike ChromeOS devices where we stop giving updates, on ChromeOS Flex, we don't stop giving updates because it's really just one big build that goes out to all those machines with all the drivers and everything on them. It'll continue to get updates and it'll continue to function. We just won't be testing against it and backporting bug fixes, things like that.
Okay. See, I saw a question pop up here. Will Flex retain the files from the older device? That's a good question. I was wondering, will they lose any access to files?
That is a good question, and probably not the answer I want to hear, but yes, we do. Basically, you format the drive essentially. So we're putting partitions in there where ChromeOS Flex is going to live. Before putting the USB in and imaging the device, you would want to upload files that were local into cloud repository. We view ChromeOS and ChromeOS Flex as a way to get to the cloud, and we should be storing those files in the cloud anyway, right? In Google Drive or in some online repository. That's the workflow that we're encouraging users to adapt. But yeah, you would need to back those files up to get them after ChromeOS Flex's image device.
Brent, if someone like an organization needed help backing up those files, is that something Promevo could provide support for?
Yeah, we're happy to look into it, understand the environment of where those files exist and identify the best way to store that. We can create some custom solutions. It just really depends on a kind of case by case basis and how you've stored those files and where they are living in your environment. But that's where a team will come in, stand deep dive in that environment and do our best to help support as long as there is a path forward.
Okay. Wonderful. Thanks, guys. I think we have another question here. How long does a transition usually take? That's a good question.
Yeah, good question. From the top, if you're talking about just literally the physical act of installing the OS, like if you have a USB stick that's already imaged with ChromeOS Flex, from the time you put it into the machine to the time that you have a welcome screen, welcome to ChromeOS, I would say it depends. It depends a little on the USB drive. It depends on the hard drive. I would say an older machine might be a little slower, but I've seen it range from like a minute and a half to maybe 3 or 4 minutes, in typical installation times. And then once it is imaged, I think Rashi alluded to this too on the video, that once you've got it imaged as ChromeOS, it boots up really fast. Like from the time the device is off until you're at the sign-in screen on a Chrome device, it's typically like 8 to 12 seconds.
Oh, wow. And you can do multiple devices at once. Just plug them all in, let them upload. So it shouldn't take too long for an organization, depending on how many devices they have.
Yeah, correct. We have some guidance around it, but typically partners that are doing mass deployments, if you're helping a customer do a mass deployment, you probably get the devices into a place with a workshop and make
Hmm.
20 copies of that USB stick and just line them up, turn them on, pop 20 USBs in. By the time you get to the last one, it's time to pull it out of the first one and put it on another one. If you think about it, put it into sort of a production line sort of scenario, you can probably do several hundred a day. Or let's see, I think we timed it out. If you're doing 20 at a time and they take 4 minutes each, then you're doing like, you know, several a minute in terms of capacity.
Wow, you could basically do a whole organization in one day, depending on your size.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Once you've got the devices in and they're plugged in and going, then you can go through it pretty fast. And
Oh
and I
wow,
think
that's
this is alluded to in the video too. USB stick is not the only way. If you're a Windows shop and you've already got SCCM and that's how you push out applications and updates and patches and all the various things you got to push out for Windows. If you already have that, you can push ChromeOS Flex out with that same infrastructure and flip the device on and it'll pixie boot and go into ChromeOS Flex and boom, you've got a ChromeOS Flex device on the wire.
okay. Great. Oh, good question. Would that work for remote teams as well? A lot of companies are hybrid remote. How does that work?
Yeah, that's a good question. There are really two paths to go there. We have a great customer story around ChromeOS Flex. There was a hotel over a Nordic hotel, a Nordic Choice Hotel, which now they're called Strawberry. They changed their name. But Nordic Choice Hotel
Mhm.
is one of our customers that was evaluating Chrome OS, and they were trying to figure out like, hey, can this work for us? They're a hotel and they had like check-in kiosks and some sort of where users could walk up and check into the hotel and get help from the concierge, et cetera. And they had them in all their hotels all over Norway, Finland. And then they were hit with a ransomware attack. All their Windows machines were basically shut
Mm.
down over the weekend. And they decided to go into high gear. And our team over to Mia helped them by imaging a bunch of these sticks and printing out a one pager. And they shipped those sticks out to hotel employees, not IT staff, hotel employees. And those hotel employees imaged all the devices, got them up and running and enrolled and saved the day and got them. They were writing receipts on paper over the weekend
Oh my
starting the
gosh.
next week. And within 48 hours, they were back and running it on Chrome OS. So you can do remote deployment that way. If you can send the USB stick out to their user, tell them the buttons they have to press, pop that thing in, and they can image their device themselves and enroll it. It's not the way I would recommend to most enterprises. If you have remote workers, I would probably recommend that stage it. You have them send their device. You ship them a new ChromeOS Flex device that you're imaging, your IT staff is imaging, or Promevo's imaging. You ship them a new device and they ship you the old one, and then you take their old one and image it and send it to somebody new. I would recommend you do that yourself or have those capabilities. But yeah, you can take one of those two paths.
Okay, great. So I think we're gonna have time for about one more question. And I was curious, we talked about security a lot and how safe it is. But coming with the hotel, like how safe is it with the security of Chrome OS Flex and people giving their information? Everything's very confidential today. So you just plug in this device and I know you guys talked about it, but can you just reiterate like how secure is this for a company?
Yeah, good question. So I'll start by echoing what Rashi said. Chrome OS is the most secure operating system on the planet today. And it's multi-layer security. It's it's read-only operating system. It's automatic updates. It's the use of the TPM chip, which is a security chip that manages all of the certificates and passwords and logins. It's a operating system that was originally built in the era of malware and ransomware. When Chrome OS was written, it was written with an idea of being secure. Most of the other operating systems date back decades, their underpinnings, and they were built as open operating systems. So Chrome OS and Chrome OS Flex is the most secure operating system out there today. Chrome OS Flex, and it depends. I think that the example you used about the hotel, it depends on what the use case is. Like in a hotel use
Mhm.
case where you've got, users walking up and the device is locked into kiosk mode. Basically it's an ephemeral use case. So when the user walks away, basically none of their personal device is stored on the machine. It's all been secured in the cloud. It really depends on the use case, but we have some security settings that can make that environment more secure. There's ways to enforce
Mhm.
two-factor authentication. All data is encrypted in user profiles separately. So there's not one encryption key for the hard drive. It's each user has an encryption key for their slice of that hard drive. So there's a number of security settings in Chrome and ChromeOS Flex that make it a very secure and private experience for each user.
Okay, that's great to hear. We want to thank everyone for joining us. And we did want to let you know, if you are joining us on the webinar today, we have a free ChromeOS Flex kit at Promevo. So if you reach out to Brent and team, they will gladly send one to you so you can test it out, get started, and they can help you on your ChromeOS Flex journey, hopefully get you into ChromeOS Jumpstart, all the things that I have to offer. So just reach out. You can do sales support at promevo.com and it'll go straight to Brent and he'll make sure you guys get taken care of. Thanks for joining us today. Pete, Brent, thank you so much. This is really informative. We enjoyed all the things ChromeOS today.
Thank you very much for the time.
Have a great day.